This is our special Clash of the Titans movie review. I'm Nick.
And I'm Rob.
And of course we're reviewing the remake of the 1981 film.
Only like a week ago, right?
Yeah, last week. Yeah.
And which we thought was an IMAX, and you want to tell the story about the IMAX?
There was no IMAX.
Well, here's the thing, like originally I thought it was going to be IMAX. Yeah, but you know what, guys? It wasn't worth the trip, so I'm glad we didn't go.
Yeah, but about the 3D thing, I mean, I learned that they just threw that in last minute when the studio decided to push it back, you know, just to incorporate that. And
just to kind of make it more, like, thrilling, like...
Yeah, let's make more big bucks.
Well, I'll tell you this, though, guys. I don't think it was necessary. The 3D almost felt like it was tacked on. Like, there was that one scene in the beginning with the Wheeling Eagle, and then maybe, like, a few, like, Kraken scenes. There was nothing that really stood out to me as overly 3D. That needed to be 3D.
Yeah,
and this is coming from a fan who likes 3D.
Same here.
So, you know, that alone was should have been a little bit of a warning sign, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, other critics have touched upon it, saying, "Oh, it was cheap." So.
Well, it didn't feel cheap. It just felt like, you know, the movie wasn't filmed for 3D.
Yeah.
So why would you Why would you put it in 3D?
They were trying to cash in on Avatar because, you know, that did very well.
Right, absolutely, and it had the same dude in it too.
Yeah, Sam Worthington.
Who I still can't get behind.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He's not that good of an actor.
He kind of reminds me of, like, the failed potential of... Who's the guy that played Nero?
Oh, Eric Bana?
Yeah, he reminds me of, like, an Eric Bana. Like, he doesn't really act. Like, he just, like, kind of says his lines.
Yeah, he's just one note.
Yeah, he's just... What's the actor's name?
Sam Worthington.
Yeah, he's just Sam Worthington in his roles.
Yeah, he's not the character he's playing.
It didn't feel like it to me, anyway. And after seeing 3 of his movies now,
yeah.
I saw Avatar, I saw Terminator Salvation, and I saw Clash of the Titans, it felt like the same guy in 3 different scenarios.
Yeah, I'm still not impressed.
In my mind, anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, the same can be said for Eric Bana, as we've talked about before.
Yeah, but Perseus in this movie as well was also a one-note character. Oh, I want revenge on Hades for killing my adopted parents.
No, I disagree. I don't think he was one note. I think he was 2 note. 1 was, I want revenge. 2 was, no matter what, I'm gonna stay a man. Like, he had wanted no part of the gods.
I hate you, Zeus. You can kiss my ass.
And I think that, like, you know, and to tell you the truth, there was more character development for this Perseus than there was in the 1980s one. We've got, like, more of a personality out of him in this new one.
No, I disagree with you there. I think Harry Hamlin's portrayal of the character was a lot more than that.
You think so? I wasn't really rooting for Harry Hamlin, though. I thought he was kind of a prick.
Yeah, well, the aspect, I mean, that his mother was, you know, Princess of Argos, and, well, just saying that royal heritage was, you know, kind of, like, dropped in this movie.
Kind of just lost.
Lost, yeah.
I'm talking more about, like, character development. You know how you were, like, with the Wolfman?
Yeah.
I was really, like, expecting a lot out of this movie. And you know what? We were talking about this over dinner that night. You know, that's definitely a reason why the ratings are so low on Rotten Tomatoes. I think 18% the last time we checked. 18% of Rotten Tomatoes for a Clash of the Titans.
I think now it's like 20.
But you know what?
Or no, 23.
It wasn't that bad a movie.
Yeah, it's not as bad as what the critics make it out to be.
It's not a 20% movie. A 20% movie is like... That's more like a Van Helsing. It's like 20%.
Oh, no.
You know, horrendous.
Oh, no.
And it's not that
No,
bad.
I disagree with that.
Or like... And I think a 20% is like Batman and Robin. Like, Clash of the Titans was not that bad.
No.
So, I mean, and if I was really going to rate it right now, I would put it up much higher. But,
yeah.
That being said, you know, it still didn't quite live up to my expectations. I think I wanted, like, a Sherlock Holmes, and I got...
Incredible Hulk. Louis Leterrier directed this.
Yeah, Louis Leterrier needs to stay away from this stuff.
No, I do appreciate his directing. I mean, I think he does well in action sequences. It's just the script, you know, was just really bad. I mean, the writers that they got to replace Lawrence Kasdan's original screenplay, you know, they just butchered the hell out of it.
And he was the dude that, what?
Yeah, who did Raiders, Empires. How could you snub him like that, you know?
Well, you know what, let's hear the whole story. Maybe he just lost his measure.
Well, then again, he was only hired to write the first draft.
Well, whatever it was, it didn't come out quite the same.
Yeah, but I just get a feeling like these 2 schmucks, whatever, kind of ruined it. Phil Hay, who worked on Aeon Flux, and basically...
Which sucked.
Manfred, But then again, I was on IMDb, like, when I was like taking notes. It was the same resume, like it was the same guy. Like I don't know if he has like two different names now, like his real name and his Hollywood name.
I don't
Like
believe
I don't know.
I think you definitely.
But then again, you can't
confused.
trust. But then again, you can't trust IMDb on everything.
Why
So,
not?
because sometimes it's like wiki. False information can be put in.
Really?
Well, no, that's what I've heard.
Wow, I always thought IMDb was trustworthy.
Yeah, that's what I thought so too.
But if we're going to continue to talk about the shortcomings of the movie, I think editing again. Besides the writing, I mean, a lot of scenes that should have been taken out of the movie.
Yep. Yeah. Well, going back to 3D, I mean, I don't know if it was whether the showing that we went to, but I don't know there was some problem with focus. Like it was getting blurry, especially in the scene where Perseus goes underwater to save his adopted family. It starts to get all dark and gloomy, and you can't even see what's going on. It's like,
Well, my complaint with the 3D was I couldn't see the harpies. Like the harpies were never completely defined. Like they were always a little hazy and out of focus. I think because the movement on top of the 3D, like I really couldn't see them until one was dead. Like this is the only time I was able to see the harpy perfectly.
no, I mean just for like brief seconds when they stopped flying or like hit the and hit the floor. So
Yeah, and I don't think it was actually the camera work that was at fault. I think it was the 3D layered on top of it.
Yeah,
Where I just couldn't see what was going on. And also the scene at the end when the Kraken was coming up, I couldn't even tell it was underwater until the very end of that scene. Because it was the way the earth was opening and the filters were on the camera.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, so back to my editing point before you completely change the topic back to the 3D.
Sorry. Go ahead.
There's a lot of stuff that needed to be taken out of this movie, and then other stuff expanded on. First of all, a lot of unnecessary characters.
Yeah, the village people, like.
Well, no, not the village people. You're gonna make them think of the YMCA. There was two like mercenaries.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that, but I was just.
There was two like mercenaries that monster hunters, quote unquote. They were stupid and they didn't belong in the movie. There was a race called the Jinn. Very cool concept. How dark sorcery replaced they replaced themselves with bits of wood and like stone and things, and how like it's extended their lives, and they were like desert sorcerers
and they commanded like the giant scorpions.
Yeah, they could like command monsters and like had spells, and it was very awesome. But you know what? It was an awesome concept that had no bearing in the movie. No bearing in the movie except as a Deus Ex Machina to save them from the scorpions in that one little scene. And then after about like 20 minutes in the movie, they ended up abandoning the group except one that stuck with them. And then he didn't really have any significant part in the rest of the story, and died when they faced Medusa. It was just like, well, what the fuck was the point of all that? Like, as cool as the concept was, you have to know when to just like put that aside and say, this is extraneous, this doesn't belong in the movie. Like, it was a stumbling block. And those two, like we said, the two mercenaries were stumbling blocks. They could have taken that extra time to develop Andromeda a little more.
Yeah, but she got snubbed by this original creative character, Io, who watched over Perseus for a very long time. And
yeah, but she wasn't a goddess, so I was kind of happy about that.
Yeah, but still, it was kind of like...
She was something like it.
Yeah, but still, it was still anticlimactic in the end. Like, oh, she came back, even though she died.
I don't want to talk about the end yet, though, but yeah.
Yeah.
She was kind of like that extra character, but what she was all the parts of Andromeda that we liked.
Yeah.
And then Andromeda in the movie was kind of left to be just kind of like a stately, distant figure who was also like a damsel in distress. But a damsel in distress that we didn't care about. And neither did Perseus. No. And it just made that whole scene at the end where she offered to marry him even more awkward. Because her father had just died. And she was like, marry me, they need a king.
Yeah,
and he's like, why don't... And then he's like, well, why don't you just become queen? And then that was how they resolved that situation. I was like, oh, there's a lot of awkward moments in that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Io, played by Gemma Arterton, was really unnecessary. I mean, she was from Quantum of Solace. She was the red-haired chick that got dipped in the oil.
Yeah, that kind of throw back to Goldfinger.
Yeah.
And she's also the chick in the Prince of Persia movie coming up.
She's so stiff. She looks so stiff in that trailer.
Well, we talked about this.
You will have the key. We will take this to the kingdom.
we talked about this already, but
yeah.
She was annoying me, and it was only a 1.5-minute trailer, so I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
but that's besides the point. Her in this movie, I didn't think she was that bad, but you're right. Not really necessary. What did she really do except explain points of the plot to us?
Yeah, she basically took...
And to Perseus.
Yeah, I mean, she took the exposition of Burgess Meredith.